I would like to thank the organizers for allowing me to present our data from the very beginning of the pandemic in Warsaw, Poland. And we were focused on children. And as you can see in the title, in fact, in title is the main message already, that higher proportion of SARS-CoV-2 positive children versus adults were detected as early as 4 months after the outbreak of 2020 COVID-19 pandemics in Warsaw, Poland. Because it was clear at the beginning that we have to protect our children when the pandemic started, and we expected that it may be the same situation as with influenza or other coronaviruses. The children will be the most exposed to COVID-19. And there are very rapidly a few papers coming from China, Spain and Italy, showing that it's not the case, that the children are less infected than the adults. So we wanted to check how it behaves how it was in Poland. And we focus on children from 2 hospitals in Warsaw. But first of all, I will show you just a very short presentation of how the COVID pandemic started and was followed up in Poland. So it started on March 4, when the first case came from Germany, and then it steadily increased. And already on March 11th, the schools were closed. So it was very, very early. And on March 24th, the first lockdown was imposed. So you can see that the increase of cases was very slow. And it's even better visible here on this slide when you can compare the 3 years of the pandemic and the beginning, which I will focus on. It is only this period, and the increase during the 3 first months is almost invisible in this scale. So this was the first peak of COVID-19 in Poland, which was in November, and then there was at least 5 peaks, which you can see here on this slide. So how it behaved in the Warsaw area, which is in the, do I have a pointer here? No? Okay, so it's in the center of the country. Already on May 15, we had like almost 3,000 cases and 18,000 in whole Poland. In July in Warsaw, it increased to 5,000, more than 5,000. So it shows that it was relatively slow increase. And an important thing at the beginning was the role of vitamin D, because we knew that, and we know still that vitamin D is very important for the homeostasis of the immune system. So we followed also what happens with the level of vitamin D in blood in children. And you can see here the situation from the year before the pandemics and 2019. And you can clearly see a little peak which appeared during the summer. And this was, of course, related to the outdoor behavior of children, particularly during the summer, and the effect of sun. When we did the same study during the pandemics, when the lockdown was imposed, we couldn't find this peak. It shows that the pandemic, and probably particularly the lockdown, had a real imprint on these vitamin D on these children, as we use the vitamin D as an indicator. So here you can compare the 2 curves, the peak in the year without pandemic, and nothing happens during the summer when children were under lockdown conditions. So now I will pass to the main part, which is the percentage of infections of children with SARS-CoV-2. And we published very soon during the pandemic the results which showed that children were less frequently infected with SARS-CoV-2 than adults during the first 3 months of the pandemics. And we could compare at that time very limited number of patients. You can see here then on the left we have symptomatic patients, and on the right asymptomatic patients. And we had only 99 positive adults of 1,675, and only 15 positive children from 444 pediatric patients at that time. And in asymptomatic group, you have just a background 0 for children and 2 of 233 in adults. However, when we looked, so here it's the numbers for the first 3 months. You can see that there is much less children than in percentage than adults. And so we published these results. We said that it's in Warsaw, it's like in China and in other places where it was when it was shown. However, few months later, we came back to our data, which we collected still, but we didn't really want to publish them because we thought that it will stay like this. And of course, because we didn't have any experience with pandemics like this, so we thought that what we observe at the beginning will stay, for, not forever, but will not really change. But it changed very, very rapidly. So you can see that already between June 1st and September 30, the proportions were completely inverted, and there were more children, 26% versus 20% of adults. And then we were very much surprised that it happened, but it was not a big surprise because other people started to publish that in fact children were more frequently contaminated and than adults in later months. So you can see also here the next 4 months, starting from June to September, month by month, and you can see 28 in children versus 16% in adults. Then it reverted again in July. Maybe it was also related to there is a season change for summer, but there were less children than adults, and then it remained still that the children were more frequently contaminated and than adults. So to have more insight into these, we divided the groups of children which we analyzed into different age groups, and it was 9 groups for 2 years for each, starting from 0 to 18 years old. And you can see here the data, and on the yellow you can see that they are non-symptomatic during 2020, and in the lower part and in the orange you can see the symptomatic. And when you compare 2020 and 2021, you can see that there is some regularity, which I marked with this curve, that the very young, at 0 to 2 years, were in 2 cases relatively highly contaminated. Then it drops with age between 4 and 8 years, and then it started to grow, and then it became a little bit more chaotic. So we believe that these, at least in these two years of pandemic, this behavior may be typical for for these groups of age groups that the lowest one were relatively more contaminated than the 4 or 8 years old children. So the conclusions from these presentations are that the pandemic, probably lockdown, had a visible effect on the level of vitamin D in children, in the blood sample of children. Initially, the percentage of children infected by SARS-CoV-2 was lower than in adults, and it was the case for 3 months in Warsaw. And after these 3 months of pandemic, the properties were reversed, and we can speculate only why this happened, but I think that the most important reason was some kind of hyperprotection or overprotection of children, because at the beginning of the pandemics we didn't know how the virus will behave, how COVID-19 what will be the impact of this new disease on children. So the children were probably hyperprotected by parents, and that was the reason probably that they were less infected at the very beginning. And then, of course, lockdown and other actions from the state made that this situation changed, and the children were maybe a little bit less protected by parents. And the fourth conclusion is that the percentage of infections was relatively high in the youngest children, 0-2 years, then fell down at 4-year-olds and 6-year-old, to increase again an 8-year-old group, and then it became chaotic. So these are the people who work with me: Ernest Kuchar, Andrzej Załęski, Mariusz Pańczyk from the Warsaw Medical University, who were directly in the hospitals, in 2 hospitals, and they provided all data. Professor Małgorzata Klotz from Houston Methodist Research Institute in Texas, and a group from the Military Institute of Medicine, where I am. It's Claudine Kieda, Robert Zdanowski, Bolesław Kalicki, and Agnieszka Rustecka, Agata Tomaszewska, Agnieszka Lipińska-Opałka. These are people from Kalicki group who were involved mostly in the vitamin D study. And at the very end, I just wanted to advertise our special issue in the International Journal of Molecular Sciences, which is called Coronavirus Disease COVID-19 Physiopathology. It's already 4th edition of this special issue. The deadline for this 4th edition is the end of August. And the impact factor of the journal increased now to 7. So I just invite you, if you have some data, if you have some papers to publish on COVID, we will be very happy to consider them for publication in this journal. Thank you very much.